This is Glow in the Dark Radio. The science fiction podcast with original independent science fiction written and performed by Mike Luoma, with music by Kevin MacLeod. The Vatican Assassin Trilogy and The Adventures of Alibi Jones by Mike Luoma are available in ebook, trade paperback, and audiobook wherever you find your books online. Get links and details at glowinthedarkradio.com. This is the Science Fiction Podcast, Glow in the Dark Radio. I'm your host, your writer and reader, Mike Luoma. And I've got Chapter 22 of Vatican Abdicator on the way on this episode. We've just gone through some serious interstellar warfare with the Eldred's massive attack on human targets and Dolomay's counterattack against both the Eldred and the Solar Alliance. But now, Dolomay is dead, and the Eldred are in massive retreat. BC thinks humanity may have prevailed. Could we have actually won the war? Join BC as he takes stock of the situation in Chapter 22 of Vatican Abdicator, coming up on Glow in the Dark Radio. Well, it's our penultimate chapter. Second to last chapter of the book. So we are almost at the end of the Vatican Assassin Trilogy. And we'll be getting into the Adventures of Alibi Jones next, because they kind of run one into the next. Just wanted to be sure you knew that as we head through the last couple of chapters of the trilogy. Looking forward to next time around. It'll be the end point for the trilogy, Vatican Assassin Trilogy. In book news, speaking of the Vatican Assassin Trilogy, you can get it for $2.49. That's half price as an ebook through Smashwords. Smashwords.com has their July summer winter sale, so you've just got a couple more days to take advantage through Tuesday. No, Wednesday. I was like, wait, 30 days? Yeah, okay, 31, July, yeah. So you have through Wednesday to take advantage of that, the 31st. You get the Vatican Assassin Trilogy for half price, and the chronological omnibus of The Adventures of Alibi Jones, also half price, at just $2.49 for the month of July, with the Smashwords July Summer-Winter Sale, going on now at smashwords.com, or just follow the link from the show notes or from my pages. A big thank you to patrons who keep Glow in the Dark Radio glowing. You keep me glowing. Sorry. But it's true. Our patrons do make it happen. If you want to help support the podcast and keep the science fiction coming your way, please join me on Patreon and help support the podcast by going to patreon.com/glowinthedarkradio and becoming a patron. You can do it for $2 a month, $5 a month, or $10 a month. And help keep the science fiction coming as we head on into the future ourselves. But again, thank you big time to those of you who are already patrons and already support the podcast. Thank you, thank you. We're going to get into Chapter 22 of the Vatican Assassin Trilogy's Vatican Abdicator, the penultimate chapter, next on Glow in the Dark Radio.
Hi, I'm JC. My co-host Cindy and I host the Fix It Home Improvement Podcast. We cover projects that every homeowner should know and top-rated products for home and garden. And for fans of Mike, we keep you posted on new smart home systems and products like robot vacuums and robot lawnmowers that seemed like science fiction not too long ago. You can check it out on your favorite podcast app. It's Fix It, F-I-X-I-T, Home Improvement.
Now here's Chapter 22 of Vatican Abdicator on Glow in the Dark Radio. BC meets Anita for dinner back on Ceres Central a week after the battle with the Eldred and Dolomay, when things finally calmed down long enough for each of them to take a break. BC has traveled throughout the solar system during the week, even back and forth to Cat's Eye, as the new Solar Alliance takes stock of itself after the battles. BC doesn't say much through the meal. "You're preoccupied by something, aren't you?" Anita presses him, finally, over dessert. "Am I? Do I seem distant? I'm sorry," he apologizes. "Yeah, you do. It's okay," she laughs. "We did just fight a war." BC sighs. "Come on, give it up," she says, trying to coax him into talking about it. I'm conflicted, I guess," he says. "Of two minds. Divided between wondering if we did the right thing by following the Eldred back to their bases and wiping out their fleet." He trails off. "And?" she prods. "And wondering if we somehow blew the chance to find our way back to Eldred. Strike back in a more meaningful way." Anita shakes her head. "And here I thought you were worrying over wiping out the Eldred ships because you thought we were being too brutal. Instead, you're worried we've missed out on our chance to find their presumably civilian homeworld, to hit their civilian population? Geesh, BC, you're more brutal than I thought. There are military targets and ships on and around Eldred. I'm not looking for the wholesale slaughter of Eldred civilians, as you're calling them." He tries to defend himself. "Oh, of course not," she answers him with a light touch of sarcasm in her voice. "There's nothing remotely like revenge on your mind right now, is there? Justice and defense only, right? 'Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord,'" she jokes. "Getting biblical on me?" BC asks. "What?" "Never mind, nothing. But if God works through man, then why couldn't we be the instruments of his divine vengeance?" She stares across the table at him. BC feels as if she's x-raying his head to see if he means all the shit he's been spouting. "Spoken like a true assassin for the Vatican," she says, finally, chiding him but breaking the silence. "Isn't that a little Old Testament for you, BC?" "Old Testament? Old job. Old me, really," BC insists. "It's only been a couple of years, but it feels like that was a lifetime ago. I've gone from wanting to kill you to falling in love with you." "What the fuck did I just say?" Anita seems to be having trouble breathing. "What did you just say?" she manages, past her shock. "Did I just say that out loud?" BC asks her. Anita nods. "I guess it's true. I think I am in love with you, Anita." "That's not exactly what you said the first time," she says, calling him out. "There was no think in there before," she points out. "I'm sorry," BC apologizes. "Look, I shouldn't have said anything. I didn't mean to. It just came out." BC's protests are abruptly cut off as Anita leans across the table and kisses him hard. She finally pulls back. "Don't be afraid to say it, BC," she says, looking him eye to eye in close. "You're not scaring me away." "That's it, too, isn't it? Fear. I'm afraid to love for fear it will run away. Afraid to love because I'm afraid to lose it. How fucked up is that?" "I'm sorry," he says. "Maybe I've been the one afraid of it all this time." "Stop apologizing," she says louder. She leans in to kiss him again. Suddenly, BC realizes his arm is soaking wet. He can't help himself and starts to laugh, breaking up their kiss. "What?" Anita says. "This had better be good. You better not be laughing at me. You're not laughing at the way I kiss, are you?" "No, my arm, look," he says, holding up his dripping sleeve. "You spilled my wine, that's all." "Too bad." "I wasn't laughing at you, Anita. If anything, I'd laugh at myself for letting what I said earlier slip out." "You can't take it back now, you know," Anita tells him. "I can't believe I said that." "Said what?" Anita says coyly, innocently. "You want me to say it again?" "If you dare. If you can you?" BC looks her in the eye. "I love you, Anita. I think I did the moment I first laid eyes on you. As corny as that sounds." "What? Back when you knocked me out with that hatch cover on Lunar Prime?" "Yeah, you remember, just before you tried to kill me for the first time," BC says sarcastically. "I remember thinking you looked like an angel." "Didn't know you were the angel of death," he jokes. "What a way to start a relationship, huh?" she says, and laughs. "But seriously, I do remember thinking way back then that you look like a sleeping Latino angel," BC says, softening his tone as he smiles. Anita stops laughing. She smiles a kind of crooked smile as she looks back at BC. "I love you too, BC." "So, you can say it too, huh?" He jokes softly. Guess I can. Well then, right back at you. Anita frowns and pulls back. That was not romantic at all. Way to kill a moment, BC. Right back at you? What was that? Sorry. I thought I asked you to stop apologizing, she says in mock anger. She laughs again, and then leans over to kiss him again. A man clears his throat next to them, the waiter. He's looking askance at the mess on the tabletop, the spilled wine dripping off and onto the floor. BC and Anita grin up at him sheepishly. Sorry, they manage to say in unison. Anita reaches over to cuff BC on the shoulder. Hey, he protests. Add any extra costs to my bill, Anita tells the waiter. You're getting this one? BC asks. My treat. Thanks. Thanks for admitting how you feel. I know that wasn't easy for you. It wasn't. I'm sorry. He stops himself. It had to come out when I wasn't thinking about it, I guess. I didn't think I was ready. What, to say it? Anita asks. To accept it, you know? BC struggles to find words. I'm flawed, Anita. I don't want to lie to you. I've been a horrible person. I've killed people. I did it for God, supposedly, but I did it mostly just to save my own skin. I'm a bad man. I'm just not good enough, or I don't know. I'm not ready or somehow, I don't know, fixed enough somehow to be worth loving. God, that sounds pathetic. No, it doesn't, she says. Confused, sure, but normal enough. But if you wait until you're perfect before allowing yourself to love and be loved, you're going to be waiting your life away. You'll be waiting forever. Nobody's perfect, BC. We're all flawed in different ways. That's a part of love, though. Forgiving those flaws or seeing past them. It's part of it, BC. You love me, and you know how flawed I am. Nobody's perfect, I know. But what? You're still expecting yourself to be perfect? You're not perfect, so deal with it. You're never going to be perfect, never. She raises her voice slightly as she makes her point. Then she quiets down a little. It's okay to try to be perfect. I guess that's natural enough. But it's a process. Life is a process. It's not over until, well, when you die, You're never done, not so long as you're breathing. If you don't think you'll be ready until you're done, you may never be ready. Not until you're dead. I know that, BC says, but knowing it and feeling it are different. They're different things. Are you feeling this? She asks, point blank. That tickles, he jokes. Anita frowns. I'm serious. Do you really feel this between us? I do. I think I've finally let myself love someone. Love you. He looks Anita square in the eyes. I love you. And I mean that. I think. I love you too, BC, she says, and she kisses him. They leave the restaurant and head off together to Anita's quarters to spend the night. BC awakes to a new day the next morning. Funny how love can change your whole attitude. He looks over at Anita, still sleeping. He lies back down and assesses the larger situation, the so-called big picture. The Eldred are dead and dying. At least all the ones we've encountered are. We don't know where Eldred is, so we can't check out their homeworld. Or maybe just one of their homeworlds. But the Eldred seem to be dying off. Dolomay must have been telling the truth. Without his continued presence, the fight has left their race. More than that, their very will to live seems to have died with their ancient enemy. Anita stirs next to him. He sits up in bed. Morning, she mumbles out sleepily. Good morning, BC replies. Sleep well? Uh-huh, she says and then yawns. I was thinking. Uh-oh, she interrupts. BC glares at her in mock anger. Sorry, she lies. Go on. She sits up and waits for him to stop glaring. His fake glare melts into a grin. Can you help me convene a meeting of the heads of the human colonies here at Sirius Central? Wait a second, she says. That's what you were thinking about? It was. I'm sorry, is that bad? Well, she says, looking down. She looks back up at him. Let's make a deal from here on out. We don't talk work. No politics, no nothing. Here in the bedroom, okay? She's really serious. I feel like I just crossed a boundary or something. Okay, BC agrees. That'll be tough. I don't have any control over what I think about or when. Just have to keep my mouth shut. I think we should at least try to keep our personal lives and our business lives separate, Anita explains. They will inevitably bleed into each other. That's going to happen. But we can at least try to keep the bedroom as our sanctuary from the outside world. Don't you think? You've got a good point there, BC admits. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. We need a place to get away from the madness. Good, she says, smiling at him. I'm glad you agree. But before we start that, do you think you could set up a meeting sometime in the next week? Anita whips her pillow around and into his face. BC throws his arms up to defend as she pummels him repeatedly. BC picks up his pillow to battle back. They both begin laughing. Soon all thoughts of the meeting are forgotten, as the two of them entangle and delay getting out of bed for another hour. Anita does set up the meeting for the middle of next week. BC will meet with the leaders at Ceres Central on Tuesday, the 13th of September. The governors of Crankshaft, Depot, Cat's Eye, and Rigel 4 all attend. The Caliph comes from Mars. Amanda Erskine attends for the Moon, Wentworth comes for the UTZ Council, and Mbeke as Pope represents the NCC. BC as Prime Representative represents the Solar Alliance government. When they are made aware of the meeting, the Domo and the Flays also request permission to send observers, as they actively seek peace and alliances. Most of the meeting covers government forms and functions, democracy. BC's a fan. With the threat of war declining, he wants to ensure they act quickly to return power to the people. BC wants to get back to having each governor popularly elected, balanced by the representatives recently elected to the Alliance's House of Representatives, and an appointed judiciary. The meeting attendees begin to take on the government building with vigor, and over the next 2 days, the simple meeting turns into a full-blown constitutional conference. BC ponders the enormity of the conference as he walks to a smaller meeting he's scheduled for Thursday morning. This has turned into more than just a meeting. I suppose we're making history. I just want to keep it simple. Simple rules, simple structures, simple laws. The rule of law, not of man. Now this should be interesting. BC enters a simply appointed conference room. 2 other figures wait at the table, the Caliph and Mbeke. So, how goes the book? BC asks the 2 men. Mbeke and the Caliph look at each other, and then back at BC. Neither says a word. Going that well, huh? BC prods them. The Caliph looks off into the distance. Mbeke looks down at the floor. There is no book yet, is there? He says, confronting them, with what he's pretty sure is the truth. We can't, Mbeke starts. It's not, the Caliph says at the same time. Both stop. They look back and forth at each other and BC. I am afraid it is impossible, Campion, the Caliph says. We have tried, BC, Mbeke assures him. But it is not possible. It's not. It is just not right, I am afraid, the Caliph finishes. BC just shakes his head. What can I say? One crazy dream down. Maybe I was reaching too high? There are too many sacrifices required, too many compromises. There would no longer be the proper forms and phrasings of the prophet, the Caliph insists. We considered many permutations, but all compromises were ultimately sacrifices too great to make. Perhaps, Mbeke says softly, you will have to be content with merely restoring peace between the faiths. The Caliph chuckles. Yes, you have stopped many folks from killing each other. Some would be satisfied with that, he tells BC. Why stop at Mars? BC wonders out loud, chuckling to himself. What about Mars? The Caliph asks. Just something someone from the project asked me once, BC half explains. Has to do with going beyond expectations, not stopping with what is expected or asked for. You haven't stopped at Mars, BC, Mbeke says, a little puzzled. You've united us all from, what now, 6 different planets, a moon, and an asteroid? Some would be satisfied with that. Some would, BC agrees. Some who didn't have as much to make up for, maybe, he says, knowing Mbeke knows what he means, and pretty sure the Caliph does, too. You did as you were ordered to do, Mbeke says to him. What you were forced to do, I know. Just following orders? Seems to me that's the lamest defense in the book, BC says. Indeed, the Caliph agrees. I'm not defending myself or what I did, or making excuses, BC says. No excuses, Mbeke says, with a touch of sarcasm. You're just trying to unite 2 historically opposed religions, that's all, he points out. Aim high, BC jokes. Mbeke and the Caliph exchange a look. We have agreed on something, the Caliph informs him. Oh really? Do tell, BC says, encouraged. We have agreed to each acknowledge the divine inspiration behind each other's book, and to accord each other's book an honored place in our respective houses of worship. Well, that's something. I guess that's a start, BC says. It's more than before, Mbeke offers. It is the best we can do now, the Caliph tells BC. I guess it is, BC admits. He starts to get up, unofficially declaring the meeting over. But then another thought occurs to him. He settles back down. Tell me, gentlemen, where do aliens fit in your religion's view of the cosmos? Well, Mbeke says, but he stops, at a loss. Interesting, the Caliph says. We have not had much time to consider them, what with working on this project of yours, BC. We have not spent a lot of time considering the aliens ourselves either, Mbeke admits. We did only find out about them officially a short time ago. Theology moves rather slowly, I'm afraid. Some theologians and religious ethicists have pondered alien life in what-if sorts of terms and scenarios, but we do not have a standing policy or philosophy in place on extraterrestrials, nor set dogma at any rate. I guess there's work to do then, huh? BC says. The other two nod a little. Maybe. Maybe not, BC, Mbeke says. Wouldn't it be wisest to assume that we are all God's creatures? The Caliph brightens. Indeed, my friend Mbeke speaks with great wisdom, he says, nodding. They too can serve Allah. May his name be forever praised. BC nods. Sounds like you're off on the right foot, BC says. This time he does stand up. And on that note, I'm off. I want to take a break before the next big group meeting. BC leaves the two holy men. He hopes to get a nap in before the final scheduled meeting later in the afternoon. By the time the attendees travel home on Friday, the Solar Alliance has been given true structure and form. The conference is productive. The leaders set up the structure of their colony's future governments, agreeing that those structures should be ratified by the governing bodies in each colony, themselves to be elected by popular vote in the next 30 days. The Solar Alliance is solidified. With the meetings adjourned and judged a success, BC contemplates taking a vacation. These wheels need to turn for the next 30 days, so I have 30 days. Might as well enjoy them. I trust the people I have in place. They'll get this done. They don't need me hovering over them. The less I do, the better. I don't want to seem to be meddling in local politics. I want real democracy to work. Let the process work. So then, where can I go on my vacation? That was Chapter 22 of Vatican Abdicator on Glow in the Dark Radio. Hey, we won the war! BC and Anita are together. The Solar Alliance is taking form. Dolomay is dead. The Eldred are gone. Things are working out. The only thing that didn't work out is the holy book that BC was hoping he could put together. That was a bridge too far. That was a reach, but it didn't happen. So yeah, almost happily ever after. But, so why is there one more chapter to go? Yeah, that can't be good. Join us next time for the final chapter and the epilogue of Vatican Abdicator and the finish of the Vatican Assassin Trilogy. Speaking of things finishing, remember you can get the Vatican Assassin Trilogy for half price with the July Summer-Winter sale at Smashwords.com. Both the Vatican Assassin Trilogy and the Adventures of Alibi Jones Chronological Omnibus are available for just $2.49 for the ebook. They're both half price during the month of July, which is through this coming Wednesday, as we've determined. So your chance to pick up each of those for half price as ebooks for just a short time longer. And of course, let other people know they can get these cheap ebooks as well. And again, thank you to patrons who help keep Glow in the Dark Radio glowing. If you want to help out, head over to patreon.com/glowinthedarkradio and become a patron for $2, $5, or $10 a month and help keep the podcast going. And again, big thank you to those of you who already do. That is all for this time around. I'm your host, your writer and reader, Mike Luoma. Hope you'll join me again next time. Thank you again for listening to Glow in the Dark Radio. Glow in the Dark Radio. This podcast presentation is copyright 2023 by Michael F. Luoma and is protected under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License, CC by NC-ND 4.0. Music by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his work at incompetech.com. Mike's books are available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook, wherever you find books online. Get links and more details at glowinthedarkradio.com and mikeluoma.com. This has been a presentation of Glow in the Dark Radio.